Hello YouTube. Came to talk about my first try at movie film. I used this Bell and Howell Model 414 and I used Fomapan 100 film, which is the black and white film that has its own chemistry. I'm not a chemist, so I can't really explain that part to you. But I wanted to say that I got a film. I got images. I was going to show a clip of the film that I made, which was just some local stuff, just to try it out. And I decided not to, because we all know what overexposed film looks like, and that's what I got. I got a lot of overexposed images working with my light meter and that film. And of course, with these ancient cameras, they were built to work with film that was much slower than what's available today. This has a maximum ASA of 40. The Fomapan was 100, so I had to use the camera in manual mode and with a handheld light meter, which at the 100 speed that film is pushed the aperture right to its limit, 22. It actually could have been, by the light meter, a little bit smaller, but it was what it was, and I wanted to try, so I went with that. And I got 6 minutes of overexposed film. So it wasn't a disappointment, but it was not quite what I had hoped for. So I did some online research and found that these faster films would prefer to be shot with a neutral density film, neutral density filter. So just to show you what I did with this one, this has color film in it right now, but I took a neutral density filter, 49 millimeter, and just taped it right over the end of the lens on this 414. Flipped over backwards, it fits in a little groove perfectly. I just used some electrical tape to tape it on there. What I want to also do is try out this model 410, which has the 3 revolving lenses, and to get this one so that I can use film with a neutral density filter, I bought, I'm not exactly sure what this thing is called. It's a filter. It was actually made for a much older turret camera than this, and I think they called this an A filter. And as I recall reading, it was for color film, exterior color film used outside. Or no, I'm sorry, that's totally wrong. Exterior color film used indoors. You would use this A filter to do whatever magic it needed to do. Well, I took the glass out of this. I bought this on eBay. I took the glass out of it, the A filter, so that I can modify it to fit over all 3 lenses with a neutral density filter. And the reason the root reason of this is the film I got from a guy named John Schwind out in Dixon, California, and I'll put a link to his website down below. I bought some new film, some Cynex 125 and Cynechrome 50, and both of those films, according to his own literature, are best suited for low light filming. Do not use in daylight, bright sun without a neutral density filter, or a camera with a variable shutter, which this is not. So what I did was I took my Dremel tool. This thing is set into a little, you can't see it, but it's got like a little channel that this glass sets into. I took my Dremel tool and I ground away the ledge on the inside of the filter so that I could pop this glass out. And I went back onto eBay and bought a super cheap, I think it was $5, super cheap neutral density filter kit. I think these are P series. They're more than big enough. So I'm going to show you is how I turn this, which is a number is an ND4, I believe it is. I wanted to land right in the middle of the range that the kit came with. It came with a 2, 4, and an 8, so I went in the middle. And that gives me, I believe, don't quote me on this because I don't have the paper right in front of me. It's a 2-stop reduction. So presumably, if with this filter, my light meter tells me for the, say the Cynex 125, that I need to have, as an example, F16 on my handy dandy downloadable printed f-stop chart, that I need to have F22. And this filter gives me a 2-stop reduction, so going from 22 to 16 to F11. And to reduce the light a little bit more, I can step it back to 16. So I've still got a slightly smaller hole than F11, and it's reducing the light coming in enough so perhaps I can get some better images with that. So I'm stepping back 2 and stepping forward 1. Because I think F6, if the meter calls for F22, 2 steps give me F11 by the meter. That is correct exposure at 16 frames per second with this particular film. But it wants a little, according to the literature, it wants a little less light. So if we go to 16, I'm stopping down a little bit, giving myself a little less light hitting the film. This is all pretty much on faith. I think it's fairly obvious that I am no authority on this. This is all trial and error, going by what I can find. But what I'm really going to focus on here is how I can turn this into this and then pop it into that, so that I can put that filter over that turret, get light reduction that the film wants, and be able to shoot perhaps a better quality film. Okay, so back now. The end result of my effort was this: a neutral density filter, an ND number 4, set into an old Bell and Howell filter for a different model. And now I can put that right over the turret. Because it's not a tight fit, I would have to use some electrical tape, which I don't have right handy, but that's okay. But that's the finished product right there. And that will give me the option to use a little more latitude in my f-stops, and instead of having to run it to its limit, which is f22, I can dial it back a little bit to a slightly larger aperture, and I can go either way, a stop or two, to get better exposure than I did the first time around. Now, if I was going to do this again, I would do a couple things differently. I would figure out some way of being able to trace this out. You can see, and you can see from the pictures, I used masking tape for something to actually leave my mark on, so I could do the rough cut. It worked, but of course it left some of the adhesive on the plastic of this coke-in filter, which I had to clean off, and I got it off, but it was a little bit of a hassle. Also trimming it, the plastic trimmed very well. The masking tape did not. You can see it's got that fuzzy edge, and it did that on both surfaces, this one and this. So I try to figure out some other way of marking it, maybe even with just a Sharpie, and using the light to follow the line. It came down to roughing it out and then pretty much working it by hand to get it to the same size and shape of this. I'm going to save this for future reference. But once I got it cut out, I was able to snap it in to the channel, and it fits pretty well. It's a little bit loose because the plastic in this coke-in filter is a little more than half as thick as the original A filter. But there it is, and I've got one roll of film to finish up in another camera, and then I'm going to try out this one, and I'm looking forward to seeing how well this works. So until next time, bye.